Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the As I Amber podcast. I'm Amber, and I love to talk about music, travel, society, and pop culture. On today's show, we have guests to the show. Solomon, how you doing?
Hey, I'm feeling really, really good. Glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, so if you've been living under a rock, we have been talking about Ryan Coogler's film, Sinners, that came out Easter weekend, starring Michael B. Jordan. And, I give it a 10 out of 10. Okay. This movie went there. And if you haven't seen it, go see it and then come back to the podcast to listen because I don't want to ruin it for you. So if you don't care, then hey, stay tuned and like, share, subscribe. But right now we're going to get into the movie. So it's rated R. I'm not a scary movie person. So this was a big deal for me to go watch it. So I watched it in the daytime because I have a sensitive spirit. I'm a scaredy cat. But on a spiritual realm, this could preach a whole sermon, honestly. And truly, as a dark skinned Black American woman growing up in the South and going to college in a rural town too, this hit different. This hit real different because when you see yourself reflected on screen or people that look like you, it's just another experience. So I want to know, you take it away. Everything. What were you like when you left the theater?
So I first want to say I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that even as I guess Christians or we identify as Christians, it was a larger spiritual message that Ryan used this film to do, and we could all learn something from it, whether we consider ourselves devout Christians or whatever group we come in. If you are a Black person in the diaspora, you can identify with this movie. To be honest with you, I'm still kind of processing it. I saw it Saturday afternoon, and all day Sunday I was watching nothing but breakdowns, and it's been all on my timeline, and every day I'm learning something new. So the best way is that it really got into my spirit, and it really left me feeling like, man, it's such an amazing thing to be Black, and our experience is so rich, and there's a lot of gems in there that I'm sure we're going to get into, but it to put it in short, it left me very fulfilled, and it left me very proud and happy, especially to be from the South too. As a Black person from the South, it's such an amazing thing.
Yes, and a lot of our stories go underrepresented. And a lot of times it's gentrified, or every show you see on television is about someone on the West Coast or up north. But the South, especially Georgia, New Orleans, like Louisiana, the rest of Louisiana too, but the Mississippi area, um, South Carolina, North Carolina. I mean, if you grew up in the South, you've heard its folklore before. And it puts a whole new meaning to sundown towns. And if you don't know what a sundown town is, you can Google it. But it was during, and still is, Black people would want to leave before the sun goes down because if they were in that city when the sun was going down, um, good things were going to happen. I'll leave it at that. Um, Also, if you are familiar with Lovecraft Country, if you like historical fiction, period pieces, this is for you. And if you even watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this had so many sprinkled messages. And I just want to give Ryan Coogler his props. Like, he's in our age bracket making a movie that's so intergenerationally connected. Like, 38 from Oakland, California, like if you grew up in the born in the late 80s, early 90s, and you see someone just make it big, like it's amazing. And Michael B. Jordan, what, you're playing twins. That that blew my mind. The only time I've seen a person who is not a twin play a twin was Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap years ago. And that takes a special kind of acting because you're really playing two characters. Duh, you're a twin, but like to see it on film is a lot. What did you think of that duality in that film?
So I think it's important that we start also by giving Michael his props because he often got the criticism that he didn't show enough depth as an actor. and to play twins and to play them and they have two distinct personalities is a different level of skill. So he beat the allegations that he's only an action hero and that's all he can do. Um, with the duality, I was struck by see, I didn't get the layers of what that duality represented until I started looking at some of the breakdowns. But for me, I found it interesting how each of the brothers provided something different for the main character, Sammy, how they gave him different perspectives of life. And you can see how both perspectives are needed in life. And if you wanted to make the comparison of like light and dark, then you need both in life. You need a little bit of the world to survive in the world, but you have to have a spiritual lens to survive the world as well. And, one of the twins was trying to tell him that, like, you got to hold fast to what you know in your spirit because the world will corrupt you. So I think the way Michael B played the characters so good. So good.
Yes, I feel like he was kind of channeling Chadwick. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Because Chadwick Boseman, for those of you who may remember, he played, of course, the legendary Black Panther movie, but he also picked roles that were very historical, and he wasn't just gonna play anybody. So when I saw Michael B. Jordan in this character, I was like, I wonder, off camera, if he channeled his friend, like, I'm gonna remind myself of how Chadwick worked hard because this movie, I just saw so much, and it was so many similarities with Black Panther and colonialism, cultural appropriation, letting outsiders enter, how someone can have more than you and still want what you have, like, mind boggling. And so it's a perfect example of everybody can't come to the cookout.
See, it's a whole
And
it's
it's
a whole
deeper.
lot that could be said about that.
A lot of people, it's really interesting seeing the online comments about what happens when everybody's included. Is the purity of something, quote unquote, watered down, or is it making it for the greater good?
And see, this is the thing. It's a lot that I want to get into. I'm gonna start slow, but I think the big thing that they were saying in there is just when you let people in and people don't have pure intentions, then you dilute what makes it beautiful. What made the juke joint such a special place was it was for them. It was bought by them for them, with them in mind. And as much as other groups can maybe empathize with like what black people go through, like the Irish had their own struggle in Europe and in America that's very similar to our struggle in a lot of senses. If you don't come with the right perspective, though, you come in and you colonize a space. And, as a kid growing up in Georgia, my pop used to always mention Haints. And he would kind of tell us different things like, yo, you got to be careful what you let in the house. Like we old spiritual, ain't even all just Christian. We make sure the house is your sacred place, but the house, if you get even larger, is also your body's a house too. So what you put in your system, what you let in your physical abode, what you let in your
Mhm.
spiritual abode, it's important. And vampires come in to take those things and live off of it. And the irony was when he heard the music, that's when he wanted to come in the house. That's when he knew where he was and he wanted to come in the house.
And what's really interesting, like, growing up, my mom was very protective of what I watched. Like, I couldn't watch Buffy or Sabrina or, all the little paranormal supernatural shows. But my dad would let me watch. And like, That's So Raven, I could kind of watch that but some people are just naturally gifted. And so some people know at a young age, like, I saw, you know, said what they said. And the character Annie, a lot of times, even in westernized Christianity, um, a lot of people are unpacking their theology. And you have to realize the time period that this movie is set in the 1930s in the rural South. Black people, especially Black women, didn't have that many options. And it wasn't like you could go to a hospital. So a lot of our ancestors or a lot of our family members had to, in rural areas, have midwives. They call them doulas now and rebranding stuff. But a lot of women that were in the South who looked like our grandmothers, our moms, our aunts, they didn't have certain options. So she was a healer.
She was,
Yeah.
and I think we have to acknowledge that a lot of the spiritual leaders in our community have always been women. They've always had the gift to heal, the gift to see and discern, and they haven't always had the ability to lead. But once they listened to her, they were able to survive, and she was able to guide them through it. And I think that was a metaphor as well, because she also was keeping him safe. And even if you want to be technical, like I said, we you know we consider ourselves as Christians down here. A lot of what Christianity is for Black people, it takes the African ancestral practices, and you couldn't tell the difference. It's just so embedded in there to where like we have to acknowledge some of this is stuff that we took from Africa and it served us. There's some parts of it that are debate that are not good for us, but we knew a conjure lady, we knew a hoodoo lady around us in some way, and you know, a lot of the things that we see now were herbal practices we brought over.
Yes, and now they call it an apothecary,
Yep.
essential oils. Okay. You like,
That's
they've been
real.
doing that. Okay, that's not new. TikTok
Forever.
told you that, but that's been happening forever in the South. So that was just my experience as a Black American female growing up in Georgia.
Exactly.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting, music. Um, of course, Sammy Boy, your name is Samuel. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about his name being Samuel?
See, it messed me up on a lot of levels. Okay, because okay, biblically, Samuel means God is heard, right? So God, and then one of the things they kept saying in there was music has the ability to pierce through like the veil to where, different generations can hear it. So God heard it, but the devil heard it as well. You know what I'm saying? And you know, music, for better or worse, can be a tool for good. It can be a tool that's corrupted. And so him being Samuel and being the son of a preacher was he knew what he was doing when he was saying that. And the vampire looked for him because he said, I heard your music and I want to bring it with my band, because he knows what music does. Music brings people in and it corrupts or it can cleanse.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting, you brought that up, Samuel, you can hear. And Satan in the Christian Bible was over music and he got kicked out of heaven. Now, we don't have
Right.
to turn this into a Sunday school lesson, but it
No,
could
no, no, that's
be.
real.
But Lucifer was like the best musician. And
Facts.
I just
Facts.
saw so many parallels to the entertainment industry. A lot of people want the talent. It was a part where Mr. Delroy Lindo's character, he plays the drunk pianist, and he said something that stood out. And he's always been a scene stealer ever since Crooklyn, ever
Yeah,
since
since
prior to
Crooklyn.
that, his catalog is expansive. He does not get his flowers. But I'm gonna give him his flowers because he said something. They like our music, they just don't like the people who play it.
Hmm.
And that he said one little thing, but when you start looking at it from a historical aspect, even like Quincy Jones, he was not allowed to. Ella Fitzgerald, so many Sammy Davis Jr., Sammy, was not allowed to walk in the front of the building that your name is headlining. Mind blown.
Exactly.
BB King, the blues, like how many things are a cultural appropriated. Now, there's a fine line between cultural appreciation, like I see you, I got this from you, I'm giving you all the kudos and credit, but a lot of times we see gentrified soul, even with the R&B charts, the pop charts, Jasmine Sullivan has to remain in this category, but Adele can be played on this station, and this station. And it's just so interesting, and no shade to two talented, beautiful girls. But I'm just saying, like, how things are interpreted. And R&B stands for rhythm and blues. And you can't have one without the other. Um, I just also thought it was really interesting the Native Americans and the Black Southern Americans. And I specify with this because we have a lot of similarities. A lot of people that they got Native in their family, Indigenous people in their family. Because if we're in the South, we live in cities and counties named after Native Indigenous people. So to see them trying to give the lady a warning, hey, we see something in the omen, like the little birds flying around. I knew something wasn't right. They're trying to warn you, lady. She didn't want to hear it.
I think that's just the metaphor for our issues today because the natives knew. The natives always knew the land. They were in touch with the omens, the spiritual things that were going on. And I think that's been the crux of it. And I think that's what Ryan was hitting on. Like when you really get to it, it's all American. It's all the same in a sense. It's differences, but it's all the same. But the issue of America has always been taking things from us, but not listening to us and not learning from us, and then asking us in the end to come back and give it what it needs to survive, you know?
Yes. And one thing that I also thought was interesting, we have the Native Americans, and I don't know which country the character came from. The people that own the store, the Asian lady
I
and
want to say
her
they were
husband and
Chinese. I
daughter.
want to say that.
I just wasn't sure. But the allyship and people loving it and disliking it at the same time, because I saw this in a theater, so it wasn't a lot of people in there, but it was just like I was looking around at people's facial expressions, and some people were for it and not for it, and it kind of it shows kind of how it is now, how in my opinion, or what I've seen in real life, what I read about, some people are cool with being an ally, but when it's time to show up and fight, where are you?
It cool being an ally till it's time to sacrifice. And it was like a breakdown I saw that kind of broke it down. It was like, with the Asian couple, they were allies until it was time to risk, and then they were willing to destroy everybody. With the lead actress, whoever, who the twin was in love with, she was so hell bent on trying to like, I'm gonna bridge and bring the two together, and she invited the thing that destroyed them into the house. So it was like a lot of things they were saying. Like there are people in our culture who are like, I want to bring people in and we can all be the same. And they don't understand you can't. And then you have your allies like, we're all on the same. And then when it's like time to lose something, they're like, no, never mind. I'll I'll,
Hmm.
I'll burn all this down. So
Ooh, Lord, she kind of reminded me of Sarah Jane from Imitation of Life. Um, with her being biracial in that time period and coming out passing as a Caucasian woman, she can't help what she looks like, but your just her being around them is a threat. How it could look from the outside looking in, and people are gonna love who they love and like who they like, but she was putting them at all at danger.
yep.
And it was just really interesting seeing we had the twins Smoke and Stack, and then we have Annie, played by a darker complected, bigger boned woman. Beautiful actress. She's actually British, and I'm like mind blown because
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
would have never known that. And then we have the character Mary, and I never knew this actress was of color in her lineage. I'm assuming she is. That's why she got the part. I'm not sure. But the contrast, because sometimes in the period pieces, historical fiction, when a woman is a darker complexion or looks a certain way, she's not the love interest. She's like the mammy, and she's not worthy of this, that, and the third because societal stereotypes. And she was absolutely gorgeous, and she was praying and healing her community. So it was just interesting seeing someone that could play the background, but you are the main character, honey. You saved the day. You came through, and to see that always talked about off camera and stuff, but to see it on camera was just, hmm, I've never seen a character like this before. it was just different.
It was, and it was necessary. And like I said, certain things hit me afterward. Like people said, like, y'all got to keep in mind the bag that she made for him is the reason why he lived. As soon as he took the bag off, that was it. The
Mhm.
black woman saved the day. She had the insight spiritually to see what was going on. People listened to her and they were able to get through the situation. And she was very much the star of the show. Like people giving a lot of attention to Haley Steinfeld's character, and I get why they're giving it to her. Not saying she didn't do a good job, I get it, but Annie, I think is it Wumi Musaka, I think is her name. She did,
Yes, I think she pronounces it Wunmi. Yeah.
yeah, Wumi. She did a really good job of portraying, I think, what we need to see more of in our community, which is just smart, powerful black women and the role that they've always played in the community. And I think the other part of it is, like I said, when you look at everything that was going on, she just steered them through it all. It doesn't get talked about enough. And it's a lot of dynamics that Ryan talked about in there that just people didn't notice. With the
Hmm.
brothers, there were some things I learned. And even I even heard a theory about all of the characters and how they all represent like the seven deadly sins. I was like, wow, that's something I didn't think about.
Yeah, I can so see it. And what I also liked about this, when art imitates life, the art of negotiation. So we see the negotiation happen with Sammy Boy and his big cousins, the twins. You gonna, just like finessing. Now, Stack, he was like, I got liquor, I got music, I want you to cook, just very, cunning and convincing like Satan. And then you got Smoke, the like more voice of reason. And when I saw the little girl that was waiting in his car, it was showing how, to me, when I saw that scene, I was like, little black girls, you can negotiate too. And he wasn't coming at her in some predatorial way. He was coming to her like, you're a smart little girl. You're going places and I'm gonna look out for you. And you don't
Correct.
really see that often, and how she wanted 20 cents or 10 cents or something. He paid her more than what she thought she was worth. That was big. And
It
she looked
was.
out. She came through. She did her job. She honked that horn. She did what she was going to do. And so that was interesting. And as well as the Asian woman who wrote the sign for them, he negotiated with her. And she was like, no, it's going to be this much. And he was like, absolutely not. Like, I just love seeing the art of negotiation. She handled her business as a woman. He handled his business. And it was like, mutual. Like, hey, you don't want me to write this? I need my money. Give me my money. Like it was just like interesting to see negotiations. And then Sammy and his dad negotiating, I did my chores, can I go? And how parents have the foresight. They're trying to tell you, you okay, you just gonna have to find out for yourself.
They gotta live in the world. You can't tell them about the world and they not live in it. And it took, I want to say that was Smoke. It took Smoke just kind of telling him like, look, you got a talent, but you don't have to go this path. Like you can be like your dad and just be an accomplished musician in the church.
Mhm.
And he was just kind of telling him about the temptations of the world. And he was showing him that he's seen the world and he knew what the world at its worst and at its best could be. And I think that speaks to just a lot of things in our experience, like the force. Even if you look beyond the force of good and evil, like someone said, I didn't think about Cain and Abel.
And the red hat and the blue hat. You remember red pill, blue pill in the Matrix?
Yep.
Like it was just, I was just like, Ryan, where I need to see what is going on in your mind.
And who won out? And who won out in the end, though, right? Blue.
Yeah.
Because good prevails over evil was one of the
Then I
central
was
things.
thinking, I was thinking also like red and blue, Democrats, Republicans. I was also
Crips and Bloods.
Crips and Bloods because he is from Cali. So it was like, this is layered.
It
This is
is.
very layered.
It
Um,
is.
One thing that also stood out to me about this film was just the rollout for it. Like it came out Easter weekend. And
That
you're talking
was
about you're a sinner.
that was intentional.
Oh,
That
that
was
was intentional.
intentional.
Like most people would think, oh, that needs to come out Halloween. No, 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 no. Ryan could have Ryan.
Ryan knew
What?
what he was doing, and I think that's the part I think people are missing, man. Like intentionality behind films with messages doesn't have to be preachy; it just has to be done right. And Easter is all about rebirth and resurrection. I think it was a metaphor to Black America about our need to resurrect spirituality, to resurrect the parts of ourselves that we put to the side. That's just my perspective.
Mhm.
But I think he was subtly telling us that, like, we got to tap back in with our roots and rebirth and resurrect that.
One thing that also stood out was the juke joint scene, the music through the genres, and just how hip hop, blues, the fusion of the cultures, and like through music, Black people have been able to be free. Like breakdancing, yeah, that lady at the Olympics, I don't know what she was doing. That was not breakdancing. But when you see the Native Americans do their dance, when you see people from the diaspora, Africa, Caribbean, um, when you see hip hop breakdancing in New York and the Bronx in the 80s, and just twerking, Louisiana, everybody came together, and that was a powerful scene. And
It's a
it just
powerful scene.
it was the music, it was layered to it. It was layered to it. And it also reminded me of the Ernie Barnes painting, The Juke Joint. So if you ever remember, I didn't really care for the show, but I know it's a staple to some people in the Black community. Good Times, the painting um, in the show, it's the juke joint, and even Quincy Jones had an album called Q's Juke Joint, and it was just like an homage and just so many layers to like Black musicians, and like you cannot buy me. Did you stay at the end after the credits roll?
I did, and before I mention it, I just want to say like that music scene. I think the thing that it just that hit all of us was this is all African slash Black music. This is all our music, in any time, past, present, or future. It will all tie into what we came from. So that we were twerking in the old country, maybe for different reasons, but we were talking the old country. Griots was rapping
Yeah.
back then. Like it's all our culture. The blues is us. The blues came from us taking those instruments from Africa, the banjo and things, and then the American pain that we endure. And that's why when we saw it, we was like, oh, and then also the last thing I said, it just shows you that our story is just a continual story. Like we think of time as like past, present, future. Our story is just one giant story. Our
Yeah.
ancestors are just here with us. You know what I'm saying? So
And one thing that stood out, I mean, I'm not even gonna go, I could go on and on, but this is just a certain episode, but it just reminded me of genres are an interesting thing. And that quote is on Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album. And everything is just intertwined. I know some people didn't care for the album. Some people don't care for Beyonce, but I get it. I get Ryan's vision. I get Beyonce's vision. I get the fusions of genres that have been appropriated and taken out of context or monetized, and how an algorithm and artificial intelligence cannot replace your God-given gift of a voice.
amen.
You you can try, but they could not break Sammy's soul. Even when he was an elder, he couldn't touch him. Couldn't touch him.
Yep.
And that was deep.
It was, and but I think it also is deep because even after everything he saw, he still chose to chase his dream of music. He saw the good, he saw the bad, he chose his own path. And I think it also just speaks to the fact that through it all, music has lasted for us.
Mhm.
And that's our spirituality. And I think different groups know that too. That's why they want to control it and control what we listen to. And I think Beyonce and them are just telling us, like, look, we can be proud to be Black, but we got to understand all of America is our doing. So we need to be proud of being American in the sense that we built this thing.
Yes. And one last thing, the water scene. and the stringed instrument of the banjo. As someone, I grew up playing piano. You see my little keyboard behind me, and I grew up playing violin. I haven't played my violin in a while because my nails are long. But that scene, if I could shout and go to church in the theater, that hit different because yes, John the Baptist dunked Jesus in the Jordan River. But if you've read water is very important in the African diaspora. Even Ta-Nehisi Coates, his book about, I read it, it's been a minute, but water is a messenger, even from West Africa into the United States, coastal region, Caribbean. We got here through water. When you're in your mother's womb, you're in water.
Correct.
And so
And it
with
was and it
Sammy
was destroyed in the water, right?
destroyed in the water, but when he got that banjo, the one thing he loved, the wooden banjo, the stringed instruments. When you read Psalms in the Bible, 23rd Psalms, when you think about David and the shepherds, and he played a stringed instrument, harps, violins, guitars. Anytime you see like an angel or a cherubim, they have a stringed instrument, not a horn, not this, not that, but a stringed instrument. And that's the one thing that killed that demon.
That's a powerful
Oh,
point.
that
That's a
was
powerful point.
that was powerful. And
It-
even just them taking music out of schools, how certain instruments are pushed on to certain groups of people. Because like you see a black person, I played classical, I was in orchestra, but the amount of people that would go, "Oh my gosh, do you play an instrument?" I'm like, yeah. And just how sometimes everyone's not privileged to have lessons and have sheet music and this and that. But the church, a lot of people learn how to play for free at church. A
Yep.
lot of people learned how to play instruments just by listening, picking up a guitar, just trying to figure out sounds on themselves. Never had Beethoven, Harvard, Juilliard lessons, just naturally gifted. And that's something that you can't buy.
And that
Like,
that also speaks to why hip hop was so important because it was kids with no instruments, no musical education, taking the music of the elders and keeping it alive. That's why when like these new generation to say I don't like boom bap or I don't like samples, we're like
mhm,
can't really be in the culture because all our favorite songs were sampled from the 60s, the 70s. 60s and 70s, like Dr. Dre says, some of the best music you ever hear. And this a fact. It was a certain soul of the
mhm,
70s and in the 80s too, and 90s, right? Like I put all that in there.
yeah.
But the 70s soul music, that was
Nothing's
like
touching that.
nothing's
It's still
touching it.
sampled. The Isley's still being sampled in its
Dude.
2025. Each genre, over 70 years of hits. And
Yep.
I'm bringing this up because Ernie Isley plays the guitar. BB King played the guitar. Jimi Hendrix, Prince, Steve Lacy, Thundercat. Like
Parliament.
musicianship. You
Parliament.
Parliament Funkadelic. You can't buy Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like a lot of them staple sample songs, the DeBarges, even Tony Braxton. When you know how to play an instrument, nobody can take it away from you.
It's different. It's
It
different.
hits different. Like, yeah,
And
you got the new computer algorithm thing. It's not gonna replace the 808s and the string. Like, it's crazy.
it is. And I think when you even just talking about water, like I think we have to realize that a lot of what we know about the power of water and the baptism, like that still comes from Africa too. Like the Nile River started everything. We came from the water, not even just like we came from within our mama's womb, but like the earliest organism came out the water. We're made up of water. It just was so many things that they were saying in there that were just reminding us of the power. And in the end, he was saved by good in the water, and good prevailed even when evil was trying to mock God in a sense, was trying to even mock the power of God, like God. So it's like it's a lot of messages in there. There's a lot of things that were said. But the advice of the black woman is why they were even able to kill it. They wouldn't have known to use a wooden stake if it wasn't for her.
If it wasn't for her, they wouldn't use the garlic. And it kind of reminded me of Holy Communion. in certain cultures, Catholicism, Christianity, when people break the bread and eat the bread and drink this and Passover and just so many different communities, like they put blood, the lamb's blood on their doorpost, and they were passed over. Demons could not enter.
And
It,
who do you think, and then this is me because they didn't say it. I know that Annie protected the house.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know Annie protected the house. That's why I couldn't get in
yeah.
because it was a they said it was like a slaughterhouse, so they should have been able to get in, but they
And
didn't get in because Annie was in there and she knew and she protected the house.
and one thing about it, like my Michael Jackson voice, Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Um, Annie happens to be my grandmother's name. And the way that Annie character, they think of like she was just so deep. It was so many layers to her, but we only saw a snippet. She had a lot of layers. The ending when she was in all white with the newborn. Oh Lord,
Yeah,
heavenly,
yeah,
heavenly,
he and
heavenly.
and I think that's the thing. He touched on a lot of deep spiritual concepts. Like he was able to look across like the veil of like looking into the other side. And she said, I got somebody waiting on me on the other side. Oh my God.
And you notice how the demons, they really got upset when she died. And it's like, um,
They wanted
she
her.
knew where she was going. She knew if she was bitten by one of them, she'll be a demon. She won't be with her baby and her God and her man anymore. And see, this is deep. This is deep. She was like, okay, if I'm gonna die, I'll make sure I'm going to the good place. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
And see, even looking at that complex, Smoke wanted to go with her.
Yeah.
Stack, who chose what he chose the desires of the flesh. He wanted to spend eternity with her, and he felt happy about that. But he said at the end, the best day of his life was the last time he got to see his brother.
Ooh, it was heavy. That was heavy.
Mic
And,
drop.
and then it's kind of like the tale of two cities. If you ever had to read that book in high school, it was the best of times and the worst of times. It's like, oh God, it really was the best night of their life and the worst night at the same time. Um, and I could go on, but I'm gonna put a pin in it. We may have to do a part two, but I will say this: if Ryan Coogler does not get awards, we know why. Because this right here was probably filmed in like less than a month. Like when you think about it, it was not some super. They probably spent the most money on the twin scenes. Other than that, the camera, special effects, and lighting, the way it was shot, I need a making the video. I need a documentary on who did the casting. The same people. Everything was intentional. Everything was intentional, even from the snake in the truck, the rattlesnake. I said,
And they
"Oh, so
and
that
how did they kill the snake? They had to cut
the head
the
off."
the snake. And biblically, we know it. Like it's a lot of stuff
Yeah,
they're saying, man.
yeah, it was
And
a
so
lot. Would you see it again?
yeah, I'm planning on seeing it again because I think for me, I was unable to like process a lot of it. And when it comes to streaming, I'm gonna buy it as well, just so I can own a digital copy of it.
Hmm.
And I'll just say this last thing because I know we got to get ready. But I'm glad that Ryan was able to make history and negotiate the rights back to that film in
Oh, yeah.
25 years.
No one can own your brain, your voice, your talent. And so for people that went over their head, that's the whole point of the movie. You can't be bald.
Correct. Because it's our
like
culture. Because it's our
Like
culture.
this is not a vibe. It's a culture. Shout out to K Tronada and Tidra Moses. But like this is just different. And I want people to, if you decide to see it, if you've already listened, cool. But see it for yourself. And if you are a scaredy cat like me, I went to go see it in the daytime. And then afterwards, I just processed, kumbaya, cartoons, fun stuff, because everyone's, spiritual path or personality may not be able to receive it. So it's one of those things where you have to be in the mood to watch the movie. But when you do, you won't forget it. So I don't think I have to watch it again because I'm scared, but I was seeing the little nuggets in even outside of a film. When we've seen Thriller, when Michael Jackson's eyes turned green and glazed over, and we see people like that in real life. And people tend to be like, "Oh, this obvious they a demon. Don't let them in. Everybody sees it, but them." And I'm just and Annie clocked it because she was like, "Your vocabulary is different. Why are you asking us permission?" It was just like things that went over other people's heads. She saw clearly that, hey, something not right with him. And if we just would listen to the spirit of God, a lot of stuff could be eliminated. And
Amen.
even I was talking to one of my friends, and they were like, having the wrong partner can mess you up, or they can always have your back. That was powerful too. So, y'all let us know what you thought about Sinners. And hey, you got something coming up to announce or any book
So
or
I'm glad that you
anything?
mentioned that. But yeah, yeah. So in June for Men's Mental Health Month, I'm gonna be releasing a short book for Black men who need therapy and never got it. But it's for Black people in general. It's for us in general. But I focused it on men in general. And the hope is that, like some of the things Ryan talked about in his book, I'm gonna be mentioning those briefly, and it's gonna be easy enough for you to follow, nothing too complex, but yeah, it should be coming soon. And follow me on my socials, Solomon Hillfleet, and you'll start seeing more and more advertisements as we get closer.
All right then. Okay, we got an author on the pod. Of course, we know he's writer extraordinaire. But I'm so happy for you and the things that you have in store. It is so needed across all boards, men, women, black, white, whatever. But your book, is for Black men by Black men. And I think that's really important to highlight. So y'all, thank you so much. Go see Sinners. Let me know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. Even if you haven't seen it, share it and come back to it. Put a pin in it. We thank you for listening. And as you always say, good night or good morning. Bye.
Bye.